want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 466th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell.
In the
flesh. We don't reuse jokes here. We just we recycle them. Tom, I'm writing a new book.
Yeah.
And the new book is going to be called The Confidence Man, or Paradise Redistributed. Oh, well, that's about as far as I've gone as a title. Okay, every day I get up bright and early, and
I bet you do.
I do, yeah. Today I was up at about 2, and I do my blog, which is about energy and climate change. It's called geoharvey.com, and we get out of that the best of the blog.
The best, I was just going to say, this is the best of the blog.
Yeah. And about 3 items a day, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, almost always 3 though. And we put those up in this show. And so you can go to geoharvey.com and read these, where you can find them on the date. But it's a whole lot easier if you go down, wrong way, that way, and click on a copy of the website that we use to do the show, which you can get as a file, or you can go to the website itself
and click. That website that we use to do the show, you've got links to everything.
I got links to everything. Yeah.
And some of these are really interesting articles.
Some of them are interesting articles. And I think with that, do you have more to say introducing, aside from the fact
Well, just that some of these articles are very interesting, and I'll
that you're
try
in the
to
flesh.
Remind them. You know, I try to mention at the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Okay, so we'll start. Let's see. This is, It's I didn't put the dates in these things properly.
Oh, it's March 31st. Thursday, March 31st.
March 31st. Okay, mine just says Thursday, comma April.
Put the dates in.
Good for you. Oh, wow. I don't know what I was thinking when I put this together. Okay, our first item is from CNN, and we have a picture of irrigation in California.
Let's get that picture up there.
Let's get the picture up there. There you go.
It looks like irrigation in California.
It sure
doesn't it?
is, and the caption was one I put together, which is "No water, no crops." And California is a state that produces an incredible amount of food.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's 2 main regions: the Imperial Valley,
Yeah,
and I guess the other one's up near the capital.
yeah.
Near Sacramento.
But that Central Valley is
Central
gigantic.
Valley. Huh? Yeah,
It's
it's
gigantic.
large. It's bigger
Big
than
area.
Vermont.
Yeah. Okay. What do you got for a title?
Severe drought and mandatory water cuts are pitting communities against each other.
In Arizona.
It says it's in Arizona.
Yeah, but this is actually for the whole West, and that
I think it's true.
actually that irrigation I think is in Arizona. I was thinking California, but no. See, it's old age, Tom. My mind is going. As the climate crisis intensifies, battle lines are beginning to form over water amid a decades-long mega drought. Some Arizona communities are facing the very real possibility of losing access to the precious water that remains, and there's not a lot of water.
Well, the article says that the West's mega drought will persist in May, get worse in the coming months. Water availability is a high concern. Yeah. Corporations are buying up land with water rights so they can profit in the years to come. And by the way, I think we mentioned it on the show. One of our legislators has introduced legislation to prevent this from happening.
Who was that? Do you remember?
I think it might be Bernie.
Oh, okay.
The Colorado River this has a lot of interesting stuff, has been a go-to source of water in the West for decades.
Yeah, for everybody.
For
which
everybody.
Is why it's almost
A
empty.
Tier 1 water shortage was declared for the first time on the river last year, reducing how much Arizona could use.
Yeah.
And as I already said, the scarcity of water is pitting small towns against fast-growing metropolitan communities.
Yeah.
Cities along the river currently use less than half of their existing municipal entitlement. They can likely triple their population under the existing allocations before they would need to acquire additional water. That's the cities along the border.
Right.
But there's other cities involved.
Yeah.
Well, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Representative Ro Khanna, or Khanna, Khanna, recently introduced a bill aimed at preventing large corporations from profiting water rights. That was what I just told you. I
Yeah.
thought Bernie did it.
Yeah.
It's Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. Well, she's
She's from New Hampshire, isn't she?
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's almost Vermont, you know. It's
And I
all
don't
New
know
England.
who Representative Ro Khanna is.
Okay.
Let's move along here. We got a picture, interesting picture of a ship.
And I should explain the caption on this. I couldn't resist this. XLCC is the name of a company.
Yes.
And the initials CLS mean cable laying ship.
Duh.
Yeah, duh. This is like, who would, the original caption was XLCC, cable laying ship, image courtesy of XLCC. So I thought, let's make something that's really confusing here.
Well, XLCC, which is the company, as you mentioned, completes concept design for a new cable laying ship. XLCC, oh, this is what you're going to say.
Yeah, this is from Renews. XLCC, in collaboration with Salt Ship Design, has completed a concept design of a cable-laying vessel, which it says will be delivered in the first half of 2025. The planned delivery of the XLCC CLV will supply the Morocco UK power project, the cable manufacturer said. Morocco, UK?
Well, it's a direct
I know.
run, except for the fact that Spain's in the way.
Yeah, well, you know, you just move Spain over.
Got to go around Spain.
But, I mean, this is mind-blowing. The idea of having...
That's a long cable.
That's a long cable. We talk about long extension cords sometimes. That's
pretty big for extension cords.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Well, for what it's worth, XLCC makes high-voltage DC submarine power cables within the UK.
Right.
They're a UK firm.
Okay, we should go on.
I think we should. We got an interesting picture.
Yeah.
What are those things?
I don't know. Okay.
Wind turbines.
Wind turbines. Yeah, well, it says so right there.
Oh.
This is from CNN, and you have a title for this too.
I do. Germany issues early warning of possible gas shortages as Russia threatens supplies. Now, this is changing by the hour.
This is just ongoing. Germany has issued an early warning of potential natural gas shortages as a payment dispute with Russia is developing. The German government said there are no supply shortages, but it urges, at present, but it urges consumers to reduce their use as far as possible. And the issue here is, I can't imagine what's going on in the mind of Vladimir Putin. But, you know,
I can't.
He says, if you people don't buy our products that we want to sell you, then you're going to have to pay in rubles.
Yeah. Nobody does that.
Nobody does that. But the other thing is, if the Russians insist on Germany paying in rubles, then
Germany's got to get the rubles.
No, it doesn't. It can just say, well, we're not going to pay you at all.
Oh, okay.
Forget
That's a good
gas.
way out.
Because they have a contract. Russia has to supply the natural gas, and Germany has to buy it, paying in euros or dollars. That's what the contract says.
Yes, I read that.
So, you know, this is, again...
There's an interesting quote from the article.
Yeah.
Russia is a gas station pretending to be a country. John McCain said that.
Yes, yes. What a smart guy.
Well, Germany issued an early warning of possible natural gas shortages over the payments dispute, as you just said.
Yeah.
Moscow wants to be paid in rubles. rather than in U.S. dollars or euros as per existing gas supply contracts. With a sanctioned Russian central bank banned from swapping euros and dollars for rubles, Moscow is trying to find a new stream of cash.
Okie dokie. We should go on. We're up to Friday, April 1st. Am I correct about that?
You are. April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day, but there's
Fool's
no
picture.
Well, I don't know that it's an April Fool's picture. This is from CNN. I'm sure I've seen that gas tank.
I don't know that I have, but I should have.
It looks like
it's in Massachusetts.
Oh, no, it doesn't look like the one on the South Shore that I used to drive by. But anyway, this is from CNN. What do you have for a title?
The world is stuck between gas prices and climate change.
The West needs more oil now. The world needs to get off of, and the West, what we're talking about here is Western Europe and the United States and so forth. The world needs to get off oil and gas ASAP. It is an epic quandary of oil addiction that runs the world economy. President Joe Biden announced a plan he said would address all of the above, with a large release of strategic oil reserve. But will it work?
Well, Biden released reserve oil.
Yeah.
But the shock to the market from the Ukraine cuts is bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do I have? Forecasters predict that the West's extreme drought would push east this spring. Biden sought to place much of the blame for the rise on gas prices at the feet of Russian President Putin for invading the Ukraine, and said it is worth the price to stand up to the autocrat.
Well, if we don't stand up to him now, we're going to have to stand up to him later, and it's going to be hard.
He's in a position of power.
Putin?
Yeah, right now.
I honestly, I think his position was weak to begin with, and it is rapidly getting weaker.
It's getting weaker.
Yeah, but he was sitting there saying all these people are saying that they're going to abandon the fossil fuels, which is what we sell for
which is what they sell. This is where they get their income, right?
Yeah. Okay, we should go on unless you've got something else.
We've got an interesting picture here of a
cement truck.
Cement truck.
And the thing on the sign says emissions free, 100% green. And I don't know
but it's not English.
Bill and L are. Well, I'm pretty sure it's, I don't know.
Green is GRO with the line through it.
With a line through it. I don't know what that's called.
It's definitely not English.
Definitely not English. Definitely not German. This is, what do you got?
Interesting truck, by the way.
Yes, it is. It's a cement truck, and it's powered by electricity.
Well, it's a good application for electric motors, because every cement truck has two engines.
Yeah. One
to drive it, and the other thing to turn that drum.
Yeah.
And with electric motors, they don't need two of them. All they need is a big battery. Which if I were to bet money, it is behind that green sign that says.
I would think so. Yeah. Okay.
American Lung Association says that EVs save lives.
Important. A recent report from the American Lung Association says that transitioning away from fossil fuels to battery EVs would lead to important health and financial benefits. The
Absolutely.
U.S. would see more than $1.2 trillion in health benefits if it goes electric for personal vehicles by 2040 and for trucks by 2035. And they're not joking about that. People are dying every day or every other day in Vermont because of air pollution in Vermont, which is not known for its high air pollution.
Not much air pollution in Vermont.
Yeah.
Well, compared to New Jersey.
I lived in New York. Yeah. You lived in New York.
Yeah.
And I remember a report coming out while I was going to school at Columbia, and the report said the measurement of the atmosphere at Wall Street indicated that carbon monoxide levels were above the industrial safe limit.
I can believe that.
And
I can believe that.
And oxygen levels were below the industrial safe limit that you could use for respirators.
On Wall Street.
On Wall Street.
Wow.
So you were getting hit by a double whammy.
Sure.
On this. It was like extra carbon monoxide, but the oxygen level was below 15%, where normally it's like 19%.
Yeah.
So,
well, the article says that the transportation center is the nation's biggest source of carbon pollution.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come
That's
as
no
a surprise. Zero emission transportation is a win-win for
Yep.
public health. And it's a natural.
It sure is. Okay, our next item, this is a picture of the sarcophagus for the destroyed reactor
let's get that
at
picture up there
Chernobyl.
first.
You get the picture of the sarcophagus?
Yeah.
And
Well, for what you want, for what it's worth, a sarcophagus is a stone coffin, typically adorned with a sculpture or inscription and associated with ancient Egypt, Rome, and Greece.
there you go.
It comes from the Greek sarcophagus, which was flesh-consuming or flesh-eating.
Oh, man.
So
Okay.
that's what a sarcophagus is.
This is from the Guardian, and what do you have for title?
IAEA investigates claim that Russians fled Chernobyl with radiation sickness.
Yeah.
This is a big cover-up. We don't know what's going on.
Well, I think we know part of what's going on. Russian troops have largely withdrawn from the Chernobyl nuclear plant. As we speak now, according to the sources I've seen today, they have in fact withdrawn completely. The Ukrainian state power company said that the pullout, the name is here, it's
Ergo-atom.
Energo-atom, I think.
Yes, Energo-atom.
Said the pullout came after the soldiers received, quote, significant doses, end quote, of radiation, a claim the nuclear watchdog said it's investigating. Apparently, these soldiers went through the forest, which is called the Red Forest, where trees turned red
It's all part of this exclusion zone.
Yes, and they saw signs that said, don't come in here, this is dangerous. And they said,
The signs were in the wrong language.
Well, some of them undoubtedly knew what the language was. But anyway, they went in and they just said, they're telling us we shouldn't be entering. Right. Anyway,
Well, I got a note here from the article. Russian troops were exposed to radiation after driving tanks through the exclusion zone.
Kicking up a lot of dust.
Kicking up radioactive dust and digging trenches in the forest.
Yeah. And the story is that one of these people already has died.
They started getting sick.
They started getting sick.
Quick.
They went into a panic. They were removed in buses to a special hospital in Belarus. So.
Well, we'll be talking about Chernobyl a little
again.
bit more.
Yeah, we will.
Got an interesting picture of a tree coming up here.
Yeah, we're up to Saturday, April 2nd.
Is it a tree or is it a bush?
Well, it's a prickly acacia, and it looks for all the world to me like a Australian finger lime. I have 2 Australian finger limes in my apartment.
Uh-huh.
They look a lot like that.
Do they, huh?
Yeah, but they're nowhere near that big. This is from ABC.
Well, that's a noxious weed called the prickly acacia.
Yeah, which is not supposed to be growing in Australia.
Well, it's originally from Africa.
Right.
It's been a multi-million-dollar problem across outback Queensland, which is Australia, for decades.
Yeah.
It's infesting prime grazing land, killing native grasslands, and degrading soil health.
Now, I've got a question for you.
Let me just finish one more sentence.
Okay.
Now it could become an energy source.
Yeah. Could you read the title for the article?
Oh, you want me to do that, huh?
I
Noxious weed, prickly acacia, to be turned into green coal by a renewable energy company in outback Queensland.
Prickly acacia.
I read the thing you were supposed to read.
Well, yeah, that's true. You did. Okay, so there's no point in going on with that. Do you have notes that you want to talk about?
Yeah, prickly acacia is a small thorny shrub with woody tree-like stems.
Yes.
The stems can be turned into wood chips and roasted to become a fuel source.
Yes.
Which is what this article's all about.
And when you roast those things, they give off gases that include methane and carbon monoxide. And you can use those 2 gases for the fuel to heat the roasting apparatus.
That's interesting.
Isn't it?
Well, biochar made from prickly acacia can be used to create green hydrogen. This is basically what you just talked about.
Yeah.
It can also be added to soil to improve its quality.
Yeah.
And it can sell for up to $2,000 a ton.
Yeah. You can buy
Coal
it.
sells for $400 a ton, so that's 5 times as much.
Yeah. You can buy biochar at the co-op sometimes, as I recall. It's used as a soil amendment, and the beauty of that stuff is that it has the veins that run through the wood still in them. It hasn't collapsed yet. That has not burned. It's just charred.
Okay.
And so microbes, fungi and things like that,
They inhabit
go in there and
yeah.
inhabit that. They're good for the soil, and also that will capture water that can be released when conditions are dry.
Like you said earlier, we're going to be touching base with that again.
Okay, I've got a new
very
picture.
Interesting picture here. This really didn't come from the article.
No, I had to find that picture. There was no picture with the article.
That's a very interesting device. I looked it up, and that thing's about a football field long.
Yeah, and it's
all these segments.
Yeah, and it's making wave energy. It looks here like the front end of a submarine coming to the surface.
Well, it depends on wave energy
yeah.
to make it oscillate.
Yeah.
And it's this oscillation
that creates
electricity.
Yes.
Very interesting
This
thing.
is from Reuters, the article.
That's what it says, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let's say what I say. Let's say what my note is. The wave energy converter uses the motion of ocean surface waves to create electricity.
What's the title of the article, Tom?
Title of the article. We didn't even get to that yet.
No, not yet.
Because the title of the article says Portugal to speed up switch to renewable power.
Yeah, in the wake of the Ukraine war. Portugal aims to accelerate its energy transition to renewable energy source supply 80% of its electricity output by 2026. The government said this is 4 years earlier than had been planned. The transition is being accelerated in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
80% within 4 years.
You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah, but this is it just shows you that this war is different from what Vladimir Putin intended it to be.
I think so.
Because
I'm not sure Vladimir Putin knows what he intended it to be.
I have no idea.
Well, the country currently gets 60% of its electricity from renewable sources. That's Portugal, by the way.
Yeah.
One of the largest proportions of green energy use in Europe. It has committed to become carbon neutral by 2050.
Which is, I think, way out for them. That's going to be very, very easy.
Well, Portugal is interesting because they don't depend on Russian natural gas pipelines.
Yes.
It primarily imports liquefied natural gas from Nigeria and from us.
Yes.
Okay, and has not imported Russian crude since 2020. And as a sideline here, Portugal closed its 2 coal-fired power plants last year.
Yes.
So Portugal's getting on the right beam here.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, we've got an article from CNN.
Oh, we got a wicked-looking guy here.
Yeah, this owl, as a psychic, I can tell you, I know exactly what this guy's got on his mind.
He looks upset.
Well,
he looks angry.
He's sitting there saying, "Don't you take that mouse. That mouse is mine. You're not going to get a single bite of it." I know what you're thinking. Go ahead, Tom. This is from CNN. What's the title?
Well, this is interesting. New Yorkers and wildlife are finding solace in the city's parks.
I love this. New York City's wildlife is thriving, and thanks to devoted scientists and activists who have spent decades on work bolstering robust wildlife habitats in the city's 5 boroughs. New York is densely populated, but much of its 30,000 acres of parkland is teeming with wildlife, including coyotes that live in Central Park.
Doesn't surprise me.
No, I knew that they were there years ago.
Well, there's parts of Central Park that are pretty wild.
Yes.
Most of Central Park is all developed with ball fields and swimming pools and
places for grass for people to walk on.
And yeah, but there's some pretty wild spots.
Well, there are spots that are wild enough that coyotes live in them.
Yeah. There's a good video in this article, if you want to look it up. It's called Nature is Healing in New York. And it's got nothing to do with the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's about 3.5 minutes. It's worth looking at.
Yeah, okay. We are up to Sunday, which I think is April 3rd. Is that correct?
It is.
And we have a picture with a title I put on that says Deluge Ahead. And this is from the Weather Channel.
Up there because that is ominous.
It looks pretty ominous.
That's the word, ominous.
Yeah. What do you got? This is from the Weather Channel.
Dangerous combination of intense wildfires and extreme rainfall likely to happen more often.
The dangers of extreme wildfires followed by torrential rainfall leading to deadly flooding and landslides will likely become more common in the western United States as the world becomes warmer, according to a study in the journal Science Advances.
Well, from the article, it says 90% of extreme wildfire events will be followed by at least 3 extreme rainfall events within 5 years. It's a 1-2 punch.
This is absolutely crazy.
In wildfires, you lose vegetation.
And then
The soil becomes less likely to absorb water, changing soil properties and making the landscape more conducive to destructive flooding. It's a 1-2 punch.
yeah, which is going to be followed by another 1 punch
Yeah.
in not very long, because
Well, here's a takeaway. Wildfires will likely get worse due to climate change.
right.
And models predict more extreme rainfall in the future. This double threat could happen up to twice as often in California and as much as 700% in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh man.
And it's traveling east.
Well, yeah.
The events are traveling east.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this is a little bit discouraging. Let's get another picture up
There we go. Here, this is a picture of a natural sulfur crystal. Somebody dug that up.
I guess that's the yellow thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and the yellow things on other parts of that.
And there's other, yeah.
This is from Clean Technica.
It's a natural sulfur crystal, and it says that a new sulfur battery promises 300% more EV range.
German startup Theon is promising a new sulfur battery technology that would help mainstream electric cars offer 900 miles of range on a single charge. The best part, compared to lithium, sulfur uses less energy to produce and costs just pennies on the dollar to source.
Sulfur is much, much, much cheaper than
They've
lithium.
got piles of sulfur in various parts of the world that's where the sulfur was extracted from oil, so it could be sold, and they don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, it's surplus.
Yeah, there's surplus sulfur.
Well, a lot of smart people are working on this problem.
That's true, yeah.
And, some of them's going to hit it right.
I'm always amazed at the things that exist in nature and the fact that you could have a crystal like that. Of course, sulfur crystals are just not very interesting compared to some of the other crystals. But
Well, Theon is betting it can build a battery that is cheaper
yes,
by basing its battery technology on minerals that are far more abundant than those used in conventional lithium-ion cells.
right.
Okay? Existing battery technology uses nickel, manganese, and cobalt. And, you don't find them in your corner lot.
No?
For the cathode,
Yeah.
Theon, the company, replaces this NFC 811 technology with sulfur.
I was
Far cheaper.
Yeah, I was looking at the price of nickel. And when I saw it, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I wonder what a 5-cent piece is worth.
Well, it's mostly copper these days anyhow. It's not
Is
even
it? I
nickel
thought it was
anymore.
mostly nickel.
No.
Okay. All right.
And all of the silver coins, none of it, they contain no silver at all.
They contain no silver. That's right. Okay.
Well, we got another picture coming up
This
here.
is from Republic World.
And that is, in case you want to know, Chernobyl.
Yeah, and that same sarcophagus is off on the left there.
There it is.
Yeah.
Ukraine hoists national flag above Chernobyl nuclear plant after the Russian troops depart.
Amid the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, Energoatom, the nuclear power company in the Ukraine, announced in a statement on Telegram, quote, today, April 2nd, at 11 o'clock, the Ukrainian flag was raised over the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and the anthem was sung, end quote. This according to CNN.
Well, a little bit of history here. Chernobyl, about 60 miles northwest of Kiev, was the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster back in 1986.
It was a bad disaster. The reactor exploded.
Bad. Oh, yeah.
Now, when I hear that it's the world's worst nuclear disaster, keep thinking that Fukushima might have been worse.
Fukushima might be close, or
And
might have exceeded it.
I think one of the reactors at Fukushima did explode. I've never heard anybody actually say that. But, you know, there was an interesting thing that happened. And this happened on the phone, and a lot of people heard it. I heard it. It was a phone conference call.
Uh-huh.
And this was in July of 2011, as I recall. Pretty sure it was in July. Ray Shaddis, they were talking about the fact that the Chernobyl, not Chernobyl, the Fukushima spent fuel pools functioned properly.
Good.
And so
Fukushima could have been eliminated. Could have been
much worse. Yeah. Ray Shaddis asked a question in the conference call, and the question was, if the spent fuel pools behaved properly, where did the fuel particle pieces come from that were found 1.5 miles from the plant?
Interesting question.
And the answer was, those didn't come from the spent fuel pool.
Oh.
Analysis showed that they had much too much iodine, radioactive iodine in them to have come from the spent fuel pool.
So where did they come from?
And Shaddis said, you mean they were ejected from a reactor?
Aha.
And he was cut off, and that exchange was eliminated from the
I don't think they wanted that information out, did they?
Log. And but there were a lot of people who heard that. As I said, I heard it myself. And one of the reactors, 2 of the reactors, when the buildings blew up, it was white smoke, and they blew up horizontally almost. I think it was reactor 3. I might be wrong about which number it was, but one of them had black smoke and the explosion went straight up. So it was very different from the other 2. And I think that there were things that happened at Chernobyl that
we don't know
we've not been officially told about. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Well, Russian soldiers had seized the plant, which still holds radioactive waste, back in February. Yeah. Which was the first day of the Russian invasion of the Ukraine.
And nothing at the plant was actually running.
No, the plant was shut down.
Yeah.
Russian personnel who were in command of the Chernobyl nuclear plant were passing control to the Ukrainian forces. They gave it back.
They left. They
ran away.
Apparently, yeah. A lot of the soldiers ran off in a panic.
Well, the IAEA has yet to verify allegations that Russian servicemen were exposed to radiation.
Yeah, they dug. I've seen pictures of the trenches they dug in the Red Forest.
Did you?
Yeah. They dug the trenches. There's no doubt that they were exposed to radiation.
No doubt of it.
Okay.
Well, they didn't know what was going on. Somebody did, but they weren't telling the soldiers.
No.
Well, there's more to come on this below, but let's move along to Monday, April the 4th.
We have a picture here of, yes, that's right, from Clean Technica, and that's quality control.
Let's get that picture up here.
Yeah, that's a quality control team looking at a car.
In Berlin.
In Berlin. What do you got for a title?
Tesla and the German auto industry's varied technological paths.
Tesla managed its business very differently than its competitors. As a result, Tesla's sales grew almost 90% in 2021 compared.
They're doing something right.
Yeah, compared to declines of 2% at Daimler and 3% at VW Group. Tesla's growth took place despite a worldwide shortage of chips, and some legacy car makers are noticing that this happened.
Well, the article isn't about stocks, but the company's stock value rose to a dizzying $1.23 trillion. That's the value. That's the market the stock
value.
Is worth.
Yeah, market value is a company.
Putting Tesla's market capitalization, which is what you just described, higher than that of Toyota, VW, Daimler, General Motors, BMW, and Ford combined.
All put together. Yeah.
All combined.
Tesla is worth more on the stock market than all of those companies.
All of their competitors combined.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that means that people have a lot of confidence in Tesla.
The investors apparently do. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Well, let's move along.
And there have been people who've sold short on Tesla, and they have pretty much always lost. They've just been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Okay. We
Interesting
are
picture
back
coming
to
up
the
here.
to the Ukraine. This
There
is
it is.
the Chernobyl plant.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, before it
That's
blew
before
up.
it blew up.
Yeah, back in the
Pretty
old
big
days.
plant.
It had 4 reactors. One of them blew up and 3 of them were shut down. And people died of radiation poisoning.
Oh, I'm sure.
Some of them knew that they were going to die because of the work they were doing. There was a guy who was a helicopter pilot, and they told him after he had flown to dump sand or water or whatever it was on the reactor that they were going to pull him out and put somebody else in. He said, "Why would you do that? I'm going to die anyway."
Yeah. I think I read that.
Yeah.
Well, Ukraine plans to resume regulatory control at the Chernobyl nuclear plant.
The International Atomic Energy Agency has been notified by Ukraine that it's examining the possibility of resuming regulatory control at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant after withdrawal of Russian military from the site. Ukraine did not specify a date. I don't know.
This is up in the air. We don't know what's going on there.
As of the time that this article was written, the Ukrainian experts had not been able to get into the plant, really take a look at it, find out what needed to be done, and say, yeah, we can take care of this. The Russians were gone.
It's extremely risky business to get anywhere near that thing.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I mean, this place is hot.
It's hot.
At present, Ukraine has 15 operational nuclear energy reactors, including Chernobyl, which isn't, it's operational, but it's not operating.
3 of the reactors could be operated.
They're operational, but they're not operating.
They're not, and they haven't since
for quite a while.
Yeah,
Well, 7 of these reactors are currently operating of the 15.
Yes.
While the others are closed. This is what it says. They're closed for regular maintenance. Well, that regular maintenance has been going on for years.
Yes. Okay.
Let's move along here. We got an interesting picture here.
We have a picture of...
It's a picture about swimming, isn't it?
It's a climate protest.
Act
Swim
now or swim later.
Yeah. And this is from WKZO.
Okay. That's a radio station.
I think it's a radio station, yeah.
Or a TV station or
Possibly
both.
a TV station.
Well, climate change could cost U.S. budget $2 trillion a year by the end of the century. This came from the White House.
Yes.
This is the White House talking.
Fire, flood, and drought fueled by climate change could take a massive bite out of the U.S. federal budget per year by the end of the century. This is the amount that would come out would be $2 trillion every year. The White House said in its first ever such assessment, and this is $2 trillion a year. That's a lot of money.
That's more than chump change.
I don't think you and I put together could come up with $2 trillion.
I think if we dug deep, we might.
You think what?
If we dug in deeply in our pockets, we might.
Deeply enough so that we get down into the ground and extract wonderful materials that nobody's ever seen before.
Well, the Office of Management and Budget Assessment that we're talking about found that the upper range of climate changes hit to the budget by the end of the century could total 7% annual revenue loss, equal to $2 trillion a year. That's where they got that.
Yeah.
Climate change threatens communities across the country through floods, drought, extreme heat, wildfires, and hurricanes.
Well, just think about it, Tom. Is Miami going to exist in 2100?
I wouldn't bet on it.
I would bet that it would not.
I wouldn't bet on it. The water down there is rising pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there's no way to stop it because of the way that area...
Well, if they stop it at the ocean, it comes up underneath sand and the land.
I've seen that happen. I had a printing shop that was in the basement of a building.
Oh, did you?
And we had a torrential rain that raised the water table. And
it came up through the bottom?
And it came right up through the concrete floor.
Wow.
Every crack in the concrete floor had water coming up through it. It was amazing.
Well, here's an interesting quote. I didn't record who said it, but future damages could dwarf current damages if greenhouse gas emissions continue unabated.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that's true. Okay.
Biden, who positioned himself as a champion for tackling climate change when he took office, has been forced to support hiked domestic oil drilling and liquid natural gas exports to Europe as Russia's war on Ukraine spikes energy inflation.
Yeah.
So despite of what he wants to do, he's being forced.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we got an interesting
We have
picture
a
here. Let's
picture
get
here
that
of
picture.
The exterior units that are associated with heat pumps. Now, not all of them look like this.
No, but they're pumping heat from cold air.
Yes.
As long as you're above absolute zero, there is heat in the air. So they're pumping some of that heat into the house.
Yes.
By the way, a refrigerator is a heat pump.
That's right. I knew that. Okay.
I'm sure everybody out in the
This is from
audience knew it
the
too.
Sierra Club. What?
I'm sure everybody out in the audience knew it too.
Well, a lot of them do. This is from the Sierra Club.
Well, can the Defense Production Act jumpstart a transition to renewable energy?
Okay. Soon after Russia invaded Ukraine, Bill McKibben proposed a radically simple idea. And his idea is that President Joe Biden should invoke the Defense Production Act to undermine Russia's economic power over the EU by having U.S. manufacturers make millions of electric heat pumps. He wants the heat in the buildings in Europe to be supplied from electricity, which in turn can come from renewable sources.
Absolutely, that's exactly it.
And I want
This is what the article says.
Yeah.
The heat pumps we're making would be shipped to Europe
yeah.
and installed en masse before the next heating season, just in time to dramatically lessen Putin's power.
Well, I want to point out, a lot of people don't realize this, but you know, during the Second World War, and that was before your time and before my time, during the Second World War, a lot of things were rationed.
Yes.
And when I was a little kid, this was very clearly still in people's mind. You had to have a stamp or whatever it was to get sugar, to get, you go down the list, everything.
You could only buy gas for your car on certain days.
Yeah, and you could only buy certain amounts.
Yeah.
And I looked these things up and I found out some interesting things. One of them was the federal government had a policy that prevented car dealerships from selling new cars, even if they were on the dealership property when the war started. Those cars that were new could only be sold to government entities.
Is that so?
Yeah. Another thing was a family could not have more than 5 tires. They were very strict in those
I guess
days.
they were.
So anyway,
Well, electric heat pumps are extremely efficient.
yes.
Rather than burning fuel directly, like a gas furnace, they work by harvesting heat from the air
Yeah.
and transferring it into or out of a room.
Yeah.
So they can also be used for both heating and cooling.
Yeah.
And household refrigerators, by the way, are heat pumps.
Our heat pumps. Now, one of the things people don't realize, because this is something that sounds like, yeah, you're going to extract heat from air that's 10 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And,
As I said, if it's above absolute zero,
Yeah.
there is heat in that air.
right.
No matter how cold
How
it is.
efficient can it be to do that? Well, the answer is very simple. If you have resistance electric power that's
Yep.
rated at 100% efficiency,
Right.
which means that all of the electricity used by that is converted
heat.
into heat. Kind of a marvelous device. However, if you want to heat a house, you are going to get about 3 times as much heat from a heat pump
Yeah.
for the same amount of electricity, which means that it's, 300% efficient? They couldn't say it was 300% efficient, so they've had to invent a new term for that, but I forget what it is.
Yeah. Air source pumps can deliver up to 3 times more heat energy than the electrical energy they consume. That's just what you're trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason is because they're not creating energy or heat here.
No,
they're just moving it from one place to another,
Yeah.
which is not all that difficult. Okay, we should probably move on. Do you have more on that?
Not that it's worth talking about.
Okay, we have a picture of a BYD. I looked at the license plate on that for a couple of minutes before I realized that thing before it says EV is probably Chinese letters that have been rendered in a stylistic manner.
That's exactly what it is, yes.
Yeah. I don't know what they are.
Well, that's a
but-
BYD Han. It's like a Ford, Chevrolet Corvette. BYD Han. BYD is the manufacturer.
Right.
And Han is the name of the car.
Yeah.
Took me a while to figure that one out.
Yeah. Okay.
This BYD, this is what it says. They have ended production of conventional cars powered by gasoline.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
The last BYD passenger car without a plug rolled off the line in China in the end of February. Since then, every one built was either a plug-in hybrid or a battery electric car, according to Electrive, which cites several different Chinese sources for the report. So they've given up on conventional engines.
Well, yeah, 97%. Well, a lot of the passenger cars, a lot of the cars they're making are electric.
Right.
But they got gas backup.
Yes.
They call them hybrids.
Yes. And BYD, by the way, is a Chinese company that is, I think of it as being a kind of a Chinese equivalent of Tesla.
Oh, it's a big company.
They make cars, they make batteries. It doesn't have the market value of Tesla, but it's
they got a big market
big company.
themselves just within China.
Yeah. And they sell mining equipment that's made with electric.
Now, BYD stands for Build Your Dreams.
Yes. I knew you were going to say that. Okay.
This doesn't mean that BYD won't manufacture gasoline engines any longer. All those hybrids will have a gas engine, and the production of component parts will continue. This is one more sign that the EV revolution is moving relentlessly forward.
Yes.
It's inevitable.
It is. Okay, our next one.
Another picture
Another
of a car.
This is a picture of a Polestar, and Hertz provided this image that was originally provided by Polestar. And this is from Clean Technica.
Well, the people that are making cars in Norway and Sweden are confusing me. They've changed names and changed. The factories are still there, but they've changed names.
What do you got for a title?
Hertz buys 65,000 new electric cars from Polestar.
Yeah. Hertz is proving to be a major player in the switch to electrification, and it's following up its 100,000 unit Tesla order with another massive electric car order, this time from Swedish performance brand Polestar. The $65,000 unit order is more than double Polestar's entire sales for last year, which was 29,000.
Well, you can't say that Polestar is Volvo or Saab, but you can say that Polestar is using the Volvo factory. They're making Polestars, and they're still affiliated with Volvo, but they're not. Volvo. There was a lot of trading of names and stuff like that.
Volvo is now two different companies, one making cars and one making trucks.
Making trucks.
Yeah. And the one making cars, I think, is a Swedish company. The one making trucks is a Chinese company.
I think you're right.
But that's my recollection.
Well, as the article says, Polestar is affiliated with Volvo.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing there 10 years ago would have been called a Volvo.
Right. Should we go on?
Yeah, we've got only one day left. We might as well.
Yeah, we're up to Wednesday, April
Nice picture
6th.
of a foggy day. Not
Oh man,
London
there
town.
is an entire building in the background there that you can't even see. Oh man.
And the article calls that, are you ready for this? Air pollution.
Air pollution? Are you kidding me?
Well, the article that is named "The Fungi Cleaning New Delhi's Air."
And this is a super interesting article.
It is an interesting article.
This is from the BBC. New Delhi is one of the world's most polluted cities. Much of the pollution comes from burning agricultural waste. Pusa decomposer, which is made up of 7 different species of fungus that are naturally present in the soil, can be used to compost the waste in place, reducing pollution and improving the soil. So they don't have to burn it anymore.
No, Pusa, for what it's worth, is a new method of clearing agricultural residue.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a microbial spray composed of species of fungi that have been tested to be effective in decomposing stubble. Okay,
Right.
so they can cut the crop down, and they pour this stuff on it, and everything there decomposes. This spray completely decomposes the stubble still left in the field after the rice has been harvested. Within 3 weeks, the old stubble integrates with the soil, acting as compost for the next growing season. This is a win-win situation.
Yeah, there's no need to burn the stuff. There's no
The
need for the
decomposed
pollution.
stubble enriches the soil, reducing dependence on chemical fertilizers by as much as 25%. This is a definite win-win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Out of 7 million acres in North India, roughly half was burnt last growing season. So far, PUSA has been employed across 2 million acres in the 4 states where the majority of the crop burning takes place. And that's only the beginning of the year.
That's only, yeah. Okay, our next item
Yeah, we got another picture here.
comes from Clean Technica. We have a picture of an electric airplane concept. Which
I
is,
was looking at that, trying to figure out where the engines were.
I think the engines are like where jets would be close to the.
Well, I think
Fuselage.
there's one in the tail,
Okay, I'll
and
buy
then
that.
the other 2 are right on the wings, right under the windows. They're silver.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the engines.
yeah, and this is yeah, and then they've got those weird spoilers on the wing tips.
I thought they were skis.
Well, they have these funny things on the tips of the wings so that they don't have vortices.
Yeah, wingtip
appearing.
vortices,
Yeah.
right. Well, let's see. Analysis on battery-powered electric aircraft and seacraft.
Yes, right. With growing success of R&D, research and development, in preparing electric vehicles for the road, National Renewable Energy Laboratory researchers are applying their expertise to non-road transportation modes. Like the electric vehicles, battery-powered aircraft and seacraft can decrease emissions, noise, and costs. Now, seacraft in this case could be anything from boats through
That's a
ships.
boat, a ship, a
Yeah, and that's
submarine.
going to include, yes, right. Well, we've got submarines that don't burn oil anymore.
Well, I think a lot of submarines have been electric for a long time.
Oh, submarines have always, at least while they were successful at sea, were electric. But during the First and Second World War, they recharged their batteries with diesels.
With diesels, huh?
Yeah, on the surface at night usually. And those old submarines, while I was actually researching this article, I came across an article about a submarine that in a military exercise, it was a diesel electric submarine of the old type, and it penetrated the defenses of the American ships around an aircraft carrier, and according to the war game that they were doing, sank the aircraft carrier.
Okay.
And the Americans
I
were
bet
like,
the captain was surprised.
what is going on here?
Yeah.
And this thing had just gone through without creating enough noise because the sonar
You pick it up, yeah.
sonar would pick it up, but they don't use the old style sonar anymore. They don't
Uh-huh.
send out a ping and wait for it to come back, because that tells the other guy where
you
are.
are. Right.
So they were
So they
looking-
listen instead of saying
they listen, and they are looking for passive indication. Well, this thing had, it was entirely electric, and it just ran in a mode that was barely moving the way that they were. So anyway, they're doing R&D to try to get airplanes and ships and boats to be electric, and this is a big deal in terms of decreasing pollution, decreasing dependency on oil and gas.
Well, at least for short runs, you're going to see battery-powered electric aircraft. I mean,
Yeah.
it's happening already.
Yeah, it's already happening. We've reported on that. In Norway, they have a schedule under which all of the short runs are going to be done with electric aircraft, and that,
And in our own Pacific Northwest,
yeah,
where there's a lot of little islands.
yeah. It was a
And in that part of
Canadian-
Canada that
yeah.
pops down into...
Yeah, the Canadian company called Harbour Air
Harbor Air, we've talked about
We
that.
have talked about they were converting all of their aircraft to electric.
Makes sense.
It does, especially for them, you know.
Well, the costs of the aircraft might be a little bit higher, but the maintenance drops down to nothing.
Well, that's a big deal with aircraft
Oh, absolutely.
because you have to have you have to have all your maintenance logged. And if people drove cars that had to have their maintenance logs like the maintenance logs of aircraft, they wouldn't drive cars. So should we go on?
Yeah, we should. Looks
This
like
is
I
our
got
last-
the wrong set of notes on here, but
This is the last article. It came from CNN. That barge, I believe, is in Hamburg in Germany. But it's
that's this
carrying
guy.
coal.
Yeah, I don't even have this guy up. Let's put him up. That's coal on a barge. That's
Coal
what
on
it
a barge.
says, huh?
That's right.
And that could be Hamburg. Hamburg.
Hamburg.
I was in Hamburg, well, a long, long time ago when I was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of Hamburg that was still destroyed
Oh,
from the war.
when was that, Tom?
1955.
See, I went to Dortmund in 1962, and I traveled along the Rhine and stuff like that. And when I was in Dortmund, people were living in buildings that had been partly bombed out.
I'm sure they were in Hamburg too.
And you know, it's like
Because downtown Hamburg was a wreck.
yeah. And the building that I stayed in, I was a guest of an old family friend, and the building that I stayed in was a brand new building, and across the street from it were apartment buildings that had burned down.
Yeah.
And had just been sitting there since the war.
Well, they didn't have the money to rebuild it.
They were in such terrible shape. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you have for title for this?
Europe proposes a ban on Russian coal imports. Interesting.
The European Union is planning a new round of sanctions that includes a ban on Russian coal imports, and it's also working on sanctions on Russian oil. The measures were announced by President Ursula von der Leyen in the European Commission. They will need approval of all 27 EU member states. Now, I don't know if that means that they have to have a consensus, or that the 27 states vote on it and the
I
two-thirds
can't
or a
imagine they
majority.
demand unanimity. They never ever get anything
Well,
done.
the reason I bring this up is because Hungary just voted on its president, and the Hungarian president is a friend of Vladimir Putin,
Oh,
and considers Ukraine to be,
Russian territory.
Russian territory,
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
isn't it? He got a landslide election. There's no question about the election. But if they don't need a consensus on this, his opinion probably won't make any difference. Honestly, I can't imagine that they would have a consensus, because he was the person in charge of Hungary previously, and all of the sanctions that the EU did on Russia happened while he was president of Hungary.
That's interesting.
But nevertheless, they're talking about banning coal imports from Russia and working
Well,
on stiffening oil.
that has a potential for affecting Russia big time, because Russia makes a lot of money selling
Fossil fuels.
fossil fuels.
That's their export stuff.
Yeah.
And it just strikes me as evidence of what's wrong with Putin's thinking, that they slapped sanctions on him saying, we're not going to buy as much fossil fuels. And his response was okay, I'm going to put a sanction on you, and I'm going to refuse to sell you all these products. Well, his income is down because of the sanctions, so he's going to...
That's like cutting your nose off to spite your face.
It is, very much. He's going to produce sanctions. Russia was more dependent on the EU than the EU was on Russia.
I think this article says that.
And, what can you say? I don't know.
Strange things. What was that song?
Strange things are happening. Yeah, that's right. Okay, we are at the end of our show.
Well, I got a quick takeaway from what we just said.
Oh, okay, please.
Exports of technology and other sensitive equipment worth $11 billion, such as quantum computers and advanced semiconductors, would be banned. Okay? All EU countries would also block the import of products such as wood, cement, seafood, and liquor, worth $6 billion. Liquor?
Well, vodka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russian oil has already been banned by the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So this isn't going away, folks.
Yeah, neither one of which was particularly reliant on Russian products.
No, they weren't.
Okay, we're going to suggest to everybody that you have a magnificently easy week
Yeah.
and enjoy yourselves, and we hope you come back and watch us next time.